All right, it is time for Currently Reading Challenge weekly wrap-up and recap for week number 6. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm super excited to be here today and to share with you this video. This is going to be my recap for how week 6 went for my Currently Reading Challenge. If you're unfamiliar, my Currently Reading Challenge is where I've focused a fair amount of time this fall just on the books I'm currently reading. Most of this year it's hovered in the 30 plus titles area, so I decided it needed some attention, and I put the fiction titles in one jar, the non-fiction titles in another jar. Each week I pick 5, and I try and read 75 pages a day, 5 days out of the week, for a total of 375 pages. So let's see how this week went for the Currently Reading. Oh, I also will be sharing how the week went in Lovember. Lovember is a readathon created and hosted by Becca, which is all about reading romance in November. I will leave a table of contents if you would like to jump around to the different parts of the video, but I'm going to start with the Currently Reading titles, and as always, I'll start with the least pages read to the most pages read per title. So the least pages read per out of the 5 I picked last week was Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook. I read 19 pages, and I have 241 pages left. This is no surprise to me. It is an extremely slow read. It is a reference guide and handbook. I am in the middle of reading about skills, and they're listed alphabetically, so I've done Bluff, Forged Documents, Climb. Climb was very mathy. Climb had a lot of math. A lot of the movement math, I just feel like, is there an app for that? Like, it's just like, normally I like the parts that are math, but I find the movement math just a little perplexing. Anyway, so I was reading about different skills, and I think I finished up classes last time, so I think this time might have been all skills. So 19 pages is actually a fair amount of pages. Most days I read 2 to 4 pages. This is officially my slowest read. It takes 4 to 6 minutes to read 1 page. So yeah, it's a slow read. I am enjoying it though, and I often do like the math. I just like how I like game mechanics, so it's like perfect for that. And so I have been reading this and enjoying it. And I think my next one, actually the next one might be Forged Documents. There might be one earlier that's about being able to tell if a document is forged, because I think I read that one. I think the next one is Forged Documents. I think I'm in the F's. So there's lots to go for that. And yeah. And also, I think I meant to mention this on other videos where this has come up, that Critical Role has started season 3. So if you've either never watched the show or didn't know the 3rd season has started, I think they've had 3 episodes. So it's a good time to jump in. Critical Role is a bunch of voice actors doing a D&D campaign together, and I find it very entertaining. I am still early in the 1st season, and I can't decide if I want to jump into season 3 either instead or in addition, because I kind of feel like I will never catch up, because I think I'm 50 episodes in, and they're like 3 to 5 hours long. So yeah, so anyway, so I thought I would mention that in case there's any Critical Role fans out there, or new fans, potential new fans. It's a great, and they're on YouTube as well as Twitch. So yeah, so it's been fun reading about D&D. Next up, I read 7 stories and 41 pages from the Edgar Allan Poe collection by Edgar Allan Poe, obviously. I have 24 stories and 130 pages left of this one. And out of this, and I did read some of the stories. I read them over 6 days. There was one day I read one like early in the day and late in the day. Normally late in the day is not good for me for Poe because I just tend to fall asleep. Sorry, Poe. And this was nice because out of the stories, well, one, I got to volume 3, so that always feels nice. I have no idea what the different volumes mean. There's nothing. It has 5 volumes. There's no forward, there's no explanation. But what was nice about this week is that I actually did enjoy some of the stories. Although my responses to the stories were variable, that's better than last time where I didn't like any of the stories. So this week I liked the Telltale Heart. It was just sort of short and tense and just like, it was, I don't know, it did surprise me, and I did enjoy it, and I also, some of them I don't remember that well. It's tough. This is also extreme. Premature Burial was pretty good, very creepy. obviously with that title. And I read Berenice and Eleonora, and they had them back to back in the book, which I think was not a good choice, because I think if I had read them, because they're very similar, and I think if I had read them further apart, I would have appreciated them better. And I think technically, like, I think I liked Eleonora better, but because I read it right after Bernice, I felt like Bernice is better. I don't know why. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm not feeling that well, by the way. I got my flu shot 2 days ago, and that's why my voice is a little, like, I'm just feeling under the weather, the after effects. So apologies if this is a little rambly, and if any of the math is wrong, because, I'm doing the best I can. Actually, the math should be fine. The math in the TBR video might be a little a little more creative. So anyway, so I didn't think that was great choice putting those two together, because I feel like they're so similar that I almost always default to the first time I've read something. But I thought that Eleonora was it was very creative, although somewhere it was listed as a potential semi-autobiographical, and I'm like, what part of that could have been semi-autobiographical? It felt really out there. Anyway, but the highlight of this one is one that has been adapted many, many times and is well known and well loved, and that was The Pit and the Pendulum. Wow, it was so good. The description of not being able to see the being in a place where you can't see, yet being able to describe the area, even just that in and of itself was great. I will admit there were some parts of it that I actually didn't understand what was going on, so maybe that wasn't always great, but overall it was fabulous. I can see why it's one that gets adapted again and again, and a story that gets referenced again and again, because it was very special. It really, really was. So there we go. So I'm happy about that. I was happy to get 7 in, and I have 24 left. This is another extremely slow read. It takes me about 3 minutes to read one page. I have defaulted to now, actually I'm reading these on my Kindle. I'm reading them in the order they are in this book, but I did find a copy. I think most, if not all, of his stuff is public domain. I will leave the Project Gutenberg link down below. If you would like to read his work, that is available public domain. But I'm really happy with the progress that I made there. Next up, I read 96 pages of Essential Art History by Paul Duro and Michael Greenhalgh, and I have 0 pages left. Yay! I finished a book. I am so excited. So this is one that I have been with all year. I actually started it, I think, last fall, and I read it at least one time during the May round of the Currently Reading Challenge. So I am thrilled to get a finish in, to get a nonfiction finish in. So I think switching to having more nonfiction is helping for Nonfiction November. I'm actually not even sure I read I read lots of nonfiction, but I'm not sure I finished any nonfiction in October. Thrilled about this, and I just went for it. I was at P, so I really just really went there, and I did do some, what did I highlight? No, that was just trying to get to that page. I don't know. Rila. Oh, it's an excerpt surfaces. Even a conscientious student could read no more than a portion of the ever-increasing literature of art history, let alone more than one country or period. All disciplines now offer excerpt services that scan a stated range of periodical literature month by month, or weekly, or quarterly, or yearly, and list them in what appears under a more or less useful set of categories. RILA, or the Répertoire International de la Littérature d'Art, was begun in 1976 and is now available on CD-ROM. It is now merged with the Répertoire d'Art d'Archéologie in 1991, and Bibliography of History of Art. So that's actually just sort of speaks to the age. I was actually curious if Rila has an online presence. This is from 93, so a lot of the tech-ish references, they do talk about microfiche, and now how it's been sort of come to that things are available on CD-ROM. So it's pre-internet, like internet being ubiquitous. So yeah, but still, on the other hand, so I'm definitely going to keep this as a reference guide in terms of movements and things like that and artists, because it's art history, so it's current up until 93, but it's obviously not current past then because it can't be, and also for tech. But when it's talking about movements from like hundreds of years ago, there could be new discoveries made, but generally speaking, it's a good reference for that. So I'm thrilled about this. So yes, I like to obviously read lexicons and textbooks and reference guides, and they just take longer to finish, but I did finish this one, so I'm really thrilled about that. I'm also really thrilled about the fact that it opens up a spot on my currently reading that I can actually pick a new art book. I may resist until the new year because I still have a fair amount on my currently reading, but I'm always going to have nonfiction art books as something I currently read, and I have been working on sort of what's the framework of the types of works I read all the time, and I always leave, and I think I will always leave 2 slots open for nonfiction art books, one that's more of a learning or history or reference or about a particular artist, and then another one that's a bit or practical, like practices, and then one that's more like an activity work, like outline alphabets. So yeah, I freed up a spot by finishing this one, so that's excellent. I'll talk more about that probably in a different video, this sort of new idea I have about the sort of types of works I read at all times, sort of. I didn't mean to go there. Uh-oh. Whoops. Okay, next up, I read 110 pages of My Soul to Keep by Tenerife Du. This is the first book in the African Immortals series. I have 413 left. This is a long one. It's weird because on Goodreads, all of the volumes or editions are like sort of 350 pages, but the version on Scribd is like 530 pages. So I don't know why there's a big difference there. It does have sometimes when the chapter ends and then there's only 3 lines, that counts as a whole page, but that can happen in a print book too. So anyway, yeah, this one I did go back to the beginning because it's been a year since I've read it. It's I don't know, I guess it's paranormal, but there's I don't know whether I thought last week, I think I said it was horror. I don't know if I would go there. To me, it mostly reads like fiction. Technically, it is urban fantasy because it is like our world, but there is, difference. There are immortals. There's not, but they don't, the general public doesn't know about them. And it doesn't sound like there is a lot of them. This is one of those ones that's really strange because it's a really good book. The writing is good. The characters are so interesting and complex. But I don't find myself drawn to it very much. In part, there's some conflict between the characters I don't like. So far, I've read the first part. I think there's 5 or 6 parts, and I've read the first part, and I stopped. I think I got to there a day early, and I thought that would be good to set myself up for success later, that I'm starting a whole new section as opposed to reading 2 chapters of the next section. That's something I've learned during this challenge. But it's really interesting. So far it's been following mostly a couple, a male-female couple. The woman is a journalist and the guy he was a teacher and now he's a translator. And it's interesting because one of the things that I have not seen come up very much in sort of paranormal horror, maybe horror actually, but paranormal urban fantasy is the discussion of religion. And she is Christian and he says he's not. He says he's not a believer, and this comes into play because of the discussion about what happens after you die and heaven and stuff like that. And so I wasn't expecting those themes in this book. And not that there was anything about this book that would make me think they don't have them. I read a lot of urban fantasy and it doesn't come up a lot. So it's very much centered in the real world. And the challenges that they have in their relationship are very real world centric, as opposed to a lot of urban fantasy that is quite more fantastical and I don't know if I would go as far to say sensational, and I know sensational means something in terms of a period of books, so maybe not that, but it's very heightened, and this is very grounded in reality. So which makes it very much not like what I would normally read, because I don't read a lot of sort of realistic fiction. So it's an interesting blend. The writing is good, and the characters are good, and I have opinions on some of the things that are going on in terms of the relationship, and I don't usually get that, but I got that much into it. So anyway, so I'm really happy that I read so much of it, because everything else this week was really, really slow reads, and this was like a page per minute, so that, which is sort of like my regular pace for fiction. I read as much as I could of everything else, and then I sort of made up as many pages as I could with My Soul to Keep. So I read it, I think, almost every day. But again, it's not the type of work that I tend to read, but the writing is so good. So it's a bit of a, I feel myself at a bit of a conundrum, because I know it's good, and just because it's not what I normally read doesn't mean I shouldn't read it. But I'm feeling this sort of like, but maybe I'll pick it next week. Maybe it'll be another couple months before I get back to it. I'm not sure. It's also very long, and I think I started it right at the end of the Creature Feature reading extravaganza last year, and now I know better. Don't start a 500-page book in the last week of a readathon. Just not a good choice. So that is learning for the future. But it's still really good, so I'm enjoying it now. So maybe it's actually fine, but I don't want to be doing that. I don't want to be doing that anymore. So anyway, so that was the fourth book. Wow, I'm really talky today. Okay, so the fifth book I read 126 pages from, and this is the big surprise of the week. It was The Structure for Your Scientific Revolution by Thomas Kuhn. Or Kuhn, I think it's Kuhn. Yeah, Kuhn. So this is a nonfiction science work, and I just decided I wanted to finish it. Again, this is an extremely slow read, 3 to 4 minutes per page. So, or maybe 2, I don't know. It was dedicated reading every single day. I think I read 30 pages every day, and it took me about 48 minutes. So it was double-ish. The math is, as I said, don't trust the math today, except for the numbers on the pages that I did ahead of time with a calculator. So anyway, but yeah, so this is a nonfiction art book, or nonfiction science book. I read a nonfiction math book last year and really liked it, and thought that I would feel the same way about this one. Not so much. This one is a textbook. It was way above my weight class. I am not someone who studied science very long or often. Math, yeah, I like math. I get math. Science, I find tougher. There are some interesting things in here, but this really is a textbook. So the assumption is that you know the people that they're talking about. They talk about especially Einstein, Galileo, Copernicus. Oh, and there was one other scientist that they talked about a lot, and like their major theories and stuff like that. It was interesting. I will say that. I didn't get all of it. I didn't even get a lot of it, but it was interesting. It actually talked about creative scientists and how they're like artists. So of course I found that interesting. And about paradigm, there's a lot that's like totally the buzzword of this book was a drinking game. Paradigm would be the word, and sort of like when things shift and how long it takes. And was it in that reference? It's one of those things that's challenging. I think also a lot about history is that, like, in the moment, you don't know what's going to be the things that are influential, so you can only look at it in retrospect. So anyway, I also, on the flip side of things, I did actually have a nice discussion with my brother about this one, because he is a historian, and he actually has taught this book. So if I have any questions, I know where to go. And which I did not know at all until it just came up. He's like, the Kuhn book? And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm reading. He's like... So anyway, so that was really lovely to have a conversation with him about this one. Yeah, so it was a toughie. And so I have 0 pages left, 126 read. And I did early in the week decide I wanted to read these 2. And I told myself, if I could read these 2, if I can finish these 2 books, then I wouldn't worry so much about my page count for the week. That finishing them was, a win in and of itself. That being said, in terms of the pages of the week, I did finish 392 pages. So I just got a little bit more than my 375 page count, and I am really happy about that. Most days I did get around 80, but it was tough. It was tough. I had to give dedicated time every day for those first 5 days, and some on the sixth day too. And it was not easy, and a lot of it was dry and slow, D&D dry and slow. Those 4 titles are my slowest titles that I've read this year. So I am thrilled that I was able to get any read. Like, I'm still, like, I guess I just really gave myself the time to read them and I often read this one first. I know I did the Poe story first, and then that one, and then art history I would just sort of bring it in when it was rough. I'm not gonna lie, it was rough. I am happy, and I am also happy now I have finished 4 nonfiction titles in the past 2 weeks, which feels great for Nonfiction November, but it was a tough week, I'm not gonna lie. So it was nice to have a bit of a reprieve with my Lovember choice, which was Lure of the Tiger by Anna Lowe. This is the 4th title in the Aloha Shifters Jewels of the Heart series. And I have a bind up of the last 3 books. This one is the first, and then there's 2 more. This is a series I started many years ago. It is a paranormal romance series set on Hawaii. Most of the male characters, they're all male-female romances so far. Most of the male characters work security. They're like ex-military types that work security on this island. And then they meet women who all sort of end up needing their help. So it does have, unfortunately, that dynamic, which I find a lot of paranormal romances have this sort of romantic suspense kind of bodyguard situation going on, which I don't mind occasionally, but I don't like it when it's always the thing. And this one had some highs and lows in it for sure. There was one thing that I was like, oh wow, I'm not sure about that. But that I just felt like the character was in a place where they had limited choices, and they decided to do something that I felt was a little compromising. So that was a little uncomfortable. But this does have, this is quite racy. I didn't remember how racy these got. This is quite racy, but contained, it wasn't sprinkled throughout. It was sort of like when you were there, and otherwise it was sort of other stuff going on. So it was a fun read. It was nice, light in comparison to the rest of the titles. It was 264 pages. I thought it was 200, so it was a bit of a challenge to finish it, but I am glad that I did finish it. This one I got was my pick for Bare Chest, which is one of the prompts for Lovember. And so I finished it. It is the only full novel that I picked. Everything else I have chosen for the prompts is a novella. So I'm excited about that because I think that's a bit more my pace. This one I included because I've read the author before, and they are very fast reads. So I did enjoy it for that. And now, of course, I'm looking forward to the next one, because the next one is one of the sort of big mysterious characters that they've had that is part of the group. I have no idea who the last one's actually about. When I look at even the title, I'm like, I should know, but I'm like, no, don't know who it's about. So anyway, and it was nice to get back to that series. I think I finished the 3rd book really early in the year, and I'm thinking about being a little more consistent with some of the series that I read, especially some of the romances. May or may not happen. I have plans for next year, which I alluded to in the end of the year tag, and I think I will do a separate video about how I'm going to do next year. So overall, I am happy with how this I forgot to show my so overall, I am pretty happy with how things went. It was 74 pages. I remember that day. I was not happy, but most days I got into the 80s, and then the last day I just read enough to get to 375, and then just some bonus. I think that was just the D&D guide and 1 Poe story. So, but slow reads, but somehow I made it. So I'm thrilled about that. Thank you for watching. Sorry that this one is a bit rambly and long. Obviously, they're not feeling well. is a little clearer than I thought it might be, or maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just feeling talky today. Anyway, so that is how my 6th week went, and I am curious to see what I will be reading this week. You will already know because that TBR will be up. So I will be back soon with another video. Thank you so much for watching.